Hello everyone, how are you doing today? This pick a card reading is for single people who are wondering if the cards have any advice for them in their search for their soulmate. I'm going to have 3 options laid out for you. The first one is this petrified wood. The second one is, I believe, selenite. The third one is hematite. So if you want, you can already make your choice and skip to that part of the video that, will explain to you what the cards have to say. Or you can wait until I lay the cards out and deliberate a little bit. I would just like to encourage you to focus on your breathing while we're doing this, just to bring in some of those more conscious energies into this session. And I would like to invite you to ask yourself the question, why am I looking for another person? So if you're meditating on this, and an answer comes to you, and you would like to share it in the comments, feel free to go for it. What's your reason? It might seem like an obvious thing. We often don't even stop to question ourselves, because it just seems so obvious that this is what we need to do. But I would like to ask you to investigate a little bit here and now and see what comes up. In the meantime, I'm going to lay down the cards. First one, the advice card for the petrified wood. Second one for the selenite. And the third one for the hematite. So feel free to take your time, take as long as you need to make your choice. By the way, I'm using the wonderful Wild Unknown Tarot for this reading. I highly recommend this deck. It's a really beautiful artistic deck. Beautiful illustrations. All right. So hopefully you've made your choice, and we're going to get started with petrified wood. So option number 1. If you have chosen this gem, your advice is 8 of Wands. Wands represent the fire element astrologically. And there's a little bit of an indication with this rainbow lightning that seems to be coming out of the sky really suddenly and surprisingly, out of the blue, one might say. But the the thing is, with the Eight of Wands, there's a culture or an environment, a space for things to happen. The Eight of Wands represents the busyness, the action, the electrified atmosphere of a busy marketplace, for example. It's the exchange of ideas, of energies, the interactions between participants that generate the buzz and excitement of the event, of the experience. So, well, the first image that is kind of coming to my mind is speed dating. There's definitely a quality to the Eight of Wands that makes it have this sense of urgency. So the advice is, since this is a fire card, the advice is to really tune into that active part of yourself, that part of you that wants to be part of the action, that has sort of a fear of missing out. And fear of missing out, or FOMO for short, has been used a lot recently in sort of an ironic or sarcastic way. But sometimes this is a welcome energy. And the advice is, if you want to find someone, if you want to broaden your horizon and expose yourself to new influences, new energies, you need to be willing to do just that. It takes courage to show up. It takes effort and an investment of energy to involve yourself with this quest, this search for a partner. And it's an energy intensive thing, meaning that it's going to potentially be somewhat draining, but you might want to look at this as if it was a training, as if it was an exercise of sorts. And you could set yourself some goals, for example, reaching out to X number of people a day, or spending X amount of time, or going to X amount of places to make yourself visible, to make yourself accessible. This is the key here. The lightning will not strike if you're not elevated from the ground. I mean, the lightning will strike, but it's not going to strike you. And the goal here, metaphorically speaking, is to attract that lightning bolt of action, that lightning bolt of love that will energize you. And in order to do that, you're going to have to do a little bit of hunting and a little bit of exposing yourself to these energies. And another important idea that I want to mention here before I let you go is that with the Eight of Wands, the emphasis is on change. It's on rapid twists and turns, which is perhaps why I was visualizing a speed dating scenario. So a lack of attachment to, in this phase, in this beginning phase of you looking, a lack of attachment to a desirable outcome is very important. So just allowing things and people to come and go, allowing for this dynamic expression of people appearing and disappearing, arising and departing from your life. It's important to not get bogged down, to not get overly married to an idea of a person just yet. So this is suggesting to me that you're in that dynamic beginning phase of looking for a partner. And during this phase, this stage, it's important that you try to have not too many preconceived ideas of how your partner is supposed to be like, for example, or have your eyes set on one particular person and get overly distraught when it doesn't work out. The key is to keep going, next, until you find that person who strikes you as special and unique and worth paying attention to. If you've picked the second option with the selenite, your message is the Queen of Swords. All right. You seem to be on a quest for purity. You're looking to find that fairy tale unicorn of a person who is up to your standards, who is above criticism. Now, having high standards is not a bad thing, but it seems to be making you a little too inaccessible or unattainable. The Queen of Swords is saying it is okay and more than advisable for you to cut the budding processes of any sort of boundary breaking, manipulative, toxic behaviors that you encounter. For that, the Queen of Swords is a great energy. So you seem to naturally have this disposition, and you seem to be more eager to say no than to say yes. The Queen of Swords is somewhat picky. She's called the Mother of Swords here. She's the Queen of Air, astrologically speaking. So she has this tendency to reject. And that's all well and good when it comes to toxic behaviors. People who are impossible to deal with, people who you cannot negotiate with, people that are not really looking for what you're looking for. It's the Queen of Swords' energy is making you likely to be able to recognize that very quickly. There's this mental clarity to the energy of the Queen of Swords, but it also makes you somewhat overly judgmental in cases where it wouldn't be warranted. So there's this extremely critical predisposition on part of the Queen of Swords. And it might not even be only directed at your potential future partner. It could also be directed at yourself, which is very sad, because in a partner-seeking situation, it would be great if you could be your best friend, if you could be your biggest supporter, and not bring yourself down by constant criticism, saying that, for example, you're out of another person's league, or you're never going to live up to their expectations, that it's not even worth trying to connect with that person. You know, that's the energy of the Queen of Swords. Extremely harsh and critical at times, but out of a nurturing intent. So there's no malice to the Queen of Swords. It's just an overgrowing, a distorting of an intention that would or otherwise be good and beneficial, but it's taking it a little too far. When it comes to emotions, the swords showing up, it's never a good sign. It's never helpful, at least as far as I can tell, in extremely rare cases, and in cases where a connection needs to be broken because it's harmful and abusive. That's when swords come in handy. But when you're trying to build a connection, when you're trying to generate intimacy between two people, the swords showing up are not very helpful. So that's just something for you to consider, whether you're being too judgmental of yourself or of your others in this process, whether you're being a little too cautious, perhaps because of negative past experiences, and just to examine a little bit how that is affecting your choices along the way. If you have picked option number 3, the hematite, your card, your message is the 6 of Cups. All right. Well, the 6 of Cups, I think, is quite a beautiful card in this deck, especially. If you look at this illustration, you can see the tree growing its rainbow roots deep into the ground, into the soil, and the 6 cups showing up as these anchors of stability. Cups represent the emotional realm, this watery energy, astrologically speaking. And the 6 of Cups, it points to the importance of having a stable connection with our past. And by stable, I mean well processed, well integrated, worked out therapeutically, potentially. So if you're in therapy, the Six of Cups is perhaps pointing to the importance of the work that you've been doing. If not, it's still possible to be on that path of recovering and understanding the roots of your current emotional state, perhaps problems with attachment or self-confidence issues, whatever it may be, positive things as well. So not just the negatives, the positives as well. They all have their roots in childhood. And the Six of Cups is the quintessential card of childhood. So before you move any further, before you really jump into and head first into the search for your significant other, it is advisable that you spend a little more time investigating and truly, honestly looking for ways to process your childhood. And you might think, what does my childhood have to do with anything that is going on in my adult life? Well, a lot. It's your mother and father, or the lack of a mother or a father or both figure in your life growing up. It's this sample that shows you how relationships, romantic, intimate relationships work. The lack of those figures or the abusive or neglectful actions of those godlike figures communicate to you and engrave, program into your brain, into your subconscious, the sorts of patterns that you will subconsciously follow in your adult life. So spending a little more time exploring those roots, exploring those past experiences that might have led you to where you're at now, that are making it difficult for you to connect if you have a hard time connecting with others. And to some extent, most of us do. So the Six of Cups is just here to gently ask you to spend a little more time with your past. And you can do that with the help of a professional, someone who is an expert, a therapist, a social worker, a mental health expert of some kind, or someone you trust, I would recommend going down the therapy route because it's given me a lot. And I'm not here to, sell you anything or tell you to sign up to this website or that website. I'm just telling you that if you look for a help in this area, I think it's really helpful. It's really sensible to go that way when you're dealing with childhood trauma like that. So I hope that you enjoy this reading or that you found it helpful. And I hope to see you in our next reading. Bye-bye.